So we were able to get that out of the way. So
Here we go.
Now we just have to do the one that's 10 times as hard.
game of the decade, which we're only going to do this once. We're not going to be doing this next year. So this is a pretty big deal. This was me alone. This was really hard.
Yeah, I don't know. Should we just
me to do.
list them off and then kind of cut down what we think would be the top choices?
I got mine down to 6 choices.
I got
Okay.
2.
Wow,
I have like
you did-
8.
Yuck. Dan, you only have 2.
Yep.
So why don't you go ahead?
Well, do you want me to
Alright.
list mine first? Because maybe his 2 will be on my list. Or
Sure.
But I have 2, so there's less of a chance that it'll be all on your list. So I won't spoil everything.
Yeah, we can do it that way.
Okay.
Whatever.
So this game has made over $6 billion.
Grand Theft Auto 5.
Most profitable entertainment product ever made. And over 110 million copies have been sold. Grand Theft Auto 5. Hasn't even been made yet. Grand Theft Auto 5.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to steal your thunder by saying that.
This
I just like
game...
guessing what you're going to say. It's really fun for me.
Yeah, you're a dick. So Grand Theft Auto 5 was just, I feel like the pinnacle of like a well-made game that went beyond like if you're an RPG fan, if you're a shooter, fan, if you're whatever, no matter what, people just immediately go to Grand Theft Auto.
I played through that campaign 3 times.
Yes, and the characters in this game, none of them were in the old Grand Theft Autos. They had to rely on like a famous voice actor or something.
I think Grand Theft Auto 4 was the first one not to have famous voice actors, but that game sucked.
Yeah, but
so-
unfortunately, it just didn't work. But with this one, they picked 3 actors that weren't like famous or anything. Just
the guy
great.
who played Trevor was basically Trevor in real life.
Yeah,
already,
he was
which really
absolutely fantastic. And every time Trevor, was when you would like spawn to him or something, sometimes he'd be in a dress drunk on the middle of a mountain, or he'd be in the middle of a bar fight.
funny.
Or
My favorite was still Scooter Buddies. He was on the scooter behind the other guy on the scooter.
so, but the sheer amount of detail that went into the world with no loading screens, like from one end of the world to another, 0 loading screens. But how detailed and amazing, like the cars looked, the weapons looked. I mean, you literally walk by someone, you can press a button to communicate with them, and each person had like a different saying, a different voice actor. It was absolutely incredible. On top of the story being great, and then
Not to be rude,
yeah.
but Game of the Decade is going to take a while. So I want to push Game
All
of the Year
right.
along.
Move it
I'm
along,
sorry,
Dan.
Grand Theft
We're
Auto
sick
5
of
was an
hearing about
amazing
GTA
game.
5.
I'm sorry. I'm
We're
not
sick of
trying to be
hearing about your
rude.
game.
Just saying he has 8 games on his list. I have 6 on my list, so I just want to make
I'll
sure
just go-
we-
I'll
Well, I
quick
hope
on
we
mine.
have I hope you guys have like 2 that are probably taking the lead.
Yeah, we're going to list them, and then we can just if we have one
All
that
right.
is on everyone's list, we
Next.
can discuss
I'm sorry.
it.
I'm not trying to be rude.
I get it. I get it.
Okay.
Skyrim.
Oh, I forgot about Skyrim.
I think Skyrim is one of those games that
Both good choices.
it because like open world games have never at that time, I feel like they didn't work. It was either good combat mechanics but flawed open world, or not an open world, or great gameplay mechanics but a small linear experience. This was one of those first ones that was like, it has a great combat that still to this day is awesome and fun to play, and people have modded it and done some crazy things with it, but it still holds well like to this day, that you can go back and play it. And now you have the chance that you can play it on everything from the Switch to the PlayStation 3,
Literally
the 4.
phone.
You can play it on the Alexa. You can, yeah. I mean, they even made a joke. If you haven't seen it, there's a YouTube video of I forget the actor, but he's playing it on an Alexa, like, oh, use health potion or whatever, or eat 50 like pieces of bread, to heal.
I would love to eat 50
But
pieces of bread right now.
The game, when I remember first playing it and walking around, and just out of nowhere from the amazing music, you would hear this thunderous roar of a dragon come flying out, and you're like, oh, that's cute. And then he lands in front of you, you're like, oh shit, this just got real. was an incredible experience that is still awesome to this day. And if anyone has not played Skyrim, it is definitely something, especially the enhanced edition, or if you have an Xbox One with all the mods that you can add.
Yeah.
They
it
even
is.
have a VR edition that's really fun to play because you really feel like you're the guy shooting the arrows. It's a blast.
Yeah.
Coming from someone who played it kind of for the first time recently, it feels overhyped now just because it came out such a long time ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're playing it. You're talking about it as game of the decade, and I played it like this year for the first time in VR, and I enjoyed it, but I wouldn't call it game of the decade. But I
Well,
think
hang on. We'll
That-
hold
yeah.
off for like the
not
debate.
for me. I guess I should rephrase that. Never mind. Let's just pretend I didn't say that part.
Okay. Do you want me to cut it out of the podcast? No, I'm gonna
Sure.
leave it in. I'm gonna
He has that power. Anyway, so those are my two choices
so-
for game of the decade.
Dan, I'm really glad you mentioned Skyrim, just because I didn't remember to think of that. So here's the thing: when I was coming up with mine, I was thinking more than just the best game. I was considering decade. I was thinking cultural impact and impact in general. That's why I think Skyrim definitely needs to be in the conversation.
Yeah,
because
for sure.
That was huge. Like everyone and their mom was playing that game. It was. I feel like it was much bigger than Fallout 4 was when Fallout 4 came out. It was much bigger than
Yeah, and it's pretty much been on every system of the decade
yeah,
too.
and it's still all people feel like people won't shut the fuck up about
Yeah.
it. Here's a game I'm surprised Dan didn't mention though, and I'm just gonna.
Oh, can I just say also that that game was made released November 11th, 2011. So it has been 9 years and
Yeah.
is still extremely
just
playable.
like it's kind of just got on the Switch, got on
So-
VR. Like that's
Yeah.
big. So here's a game I'm surprised Dan didn't mention because I figured it would have been like number one on his list. Witcher 3
No, Witcher was great, but I'm trying to think of like
overall. I'm just so Witcher 3 to me was just like one of the biggest games that came out in the decade, just because it's like considered like from a studio that self-publishes, like that's pretty huge. And again, I'm thinking of like impact, like cultural impact. I don't think without the success of Witcher 3, I don't think Cyberpunk would be coming out. And just everybody I've talked to just has that as like, oh my God, that's my favorite game that has ever come out. Like that's how big that was, like graphically and playing wise. Here the other ones. I did have GTA 5 as well on the list. I had Red Dead Redemption as well for kind of the same reasons as GTA 5. Like, that didn't rely on famous voice actors. That was a huge game that came out when it came out. It was basically considered GTA in the Wild West. And, granted, they could kind of like overlap and lump in with each other as kind of being like, hey, Rockstar won the decade. But like, I've always loved Rockstar games. So, Red Dead Redemption for me was huge. Last of Us, most gripping story I've played in such a long time. Most emotional story I've played. Dan's mom's calling him right now. I felt the feels with that game. Like I couldn't leave it off. Obviously, no surprise here. Breath of the Wild. I honestly, if I'm being honest, I don't think it should win Game of the Decade. I'm just saying, like, for what it did for the Zelda franchise, where suddenly, like, it was the first game since the first Zelda where, like, hey, you can go anywhere and do anything you want. I thought that was really huge. And, it sold more copies than it did the Switch console when it came out. I think that's really big. And that's, I just think that's, like, a really big deal. And I think it helped save Nintendo. It helped make the Switch. Like, it's helped sell a console on its, like, day of launch. It's probably the best launch title of all time. I don't think that should go under the radar. But I understand why. I don't ultimately think it should be the best game of the decade, though. I just think it should be mentioned. Here's the one that I think is going to get the most flack, but you got to hear me out on this one. Pokemon Go.
It's on my list.
Think about this. Think about the impact that this game had. And when I say impact, this reached beyond gamers.
Yeah.
This was huge. Pokemon's been around since its conception in Japan since 1995. That's a long time, and the franchise fell off slowly but surely to just the hardcore fans. Everyone talked about this game. This game was a worldwide phenomenon initially, and granted, a lot of people fell off of it over time, but like you had stories of people like walking in the middle of highways trying to catch that Pokemon. There were people I worked with in my office who don't even play video games, who were playing Pokemon Go or played it as a kid and got back into it because of Pokemon Go. I don't think you can ignore what Pokemon Go was as a phenomenon. And
Yeah,
I
it's
think
crazy,
it should
like-
actually be in the conversation for game. Do I think it's game of the decade? Probably, honestly, not. But I just think you can't not talk about it, though.
Impact, I feel like. If we're talking
Impact.
decade, like
If we're talking actual gameplay,
Impact.
like
no,
obviously
well,
not.
That's where I
but-
would. That's where I would say, like, to the people that were like, "Oh, Death Stranding's not a game." It's like, yeah, but do you think Pokemon Go is a game?
And here's the thing. That's why I
yeah,
thought
it's subjective.
Death Stranding was the best game that came out this year. No, but I had to mention it as game of the year because of
Yep.
Impact. I think that plays a huge role. Was that all I had for 6? Yeah. So basically, just to reiterate, the 6 that I wrote down were Red Dead Redemption, Last of Us, GTA 5, Witcher 3, Pokemon Go, Breath of the Wild, and I'm going to add Skyrim on there because I think that should be in consideration. Even though I didn't write it down, I still definitely agree with that, so I'm going to add that to my list now. Obviously, there's a lot of other there were other. Originally, my original list was like 25 games long. I had to weed it down eventually. Like I had things on there like Halo Reach was really good. Game of the decade, no, God no. There were obviously other games that I felt were really fun. Portal 2, amazing game. Game of the decade, no, God no. Like just little random awesome games that came out. Mass Effect 2 and 3 I think came out, but not 1. I think 1 came out prior to the decade. But 2 and 3 came out in this decade, I'm pretty sure.
No, it did. Well, no, wait.
Mass
I'm
Effect
sorry.
1?
No, you're right. Because
They came out in like 2008 or 9,
because
right?
I remember your roommate.
Pete?
No. Oh, you're right. He wasn't your roommate. And Andy
Layton.
Yeah, he played
Yeah.
it.
Your
And
name's
I remember looking at it. I was like, oh, this looks.
That was
interesting.
that was prior to us graduating. So
Oh, okay. Yep. So yeah, 2010.
All right, Matt, what's your list?
Sure, I'll go through my list kind of quick. So first, I actually had Pokemon Go as well. Just everything you were saying, and just like I live kind of in the suburbs outside of Boston. It was a game that actually got me to go into the city, find an annoying parking spot, because that was one of the downsides of the game. Is the best spots were kind of like where people clustered around.
And not to mention, I forgot to mention the community aspect of it.
Yeah, exactly. But just like going in on those first few months and just like literally seeing waves of people move in like coordination of this phone game. Like you would hear someone yell, "Oh, hey, there's a Lapras over here," or whatever, like some rare Pokemon, and you would just see like 200 random people just
And
like.
I didn't get to catch that fucking Lapras. I remember that.
Just run across the.
That actually happened.
Yeah, the like lawn of the Boston.
Goddamn Lapras.
Yeah, it's really cool to see how that played out, and it's like as someone that really kind of enjoys the idea of phone games and kind of gets disappointed every month by the newest games. This is the game that's been on my phone the longest since it came out in I think like 2016. It's the only game that I've never like uninstalled or decided not to play. There's a lot of times where I'll go through where I'll just like won't play it for a while, especially in the winter, because again, live near Boston, it kind of gets cold where you don't want to kind of walk around for an hour or two in the.
Yeah, I
In
do
the
drop
snow.
off in the winter.
But then every summer, it's like something to do. It's a reason to get out of the house and just kind of walk around, which is nice.
It's funny that's also its biggest downfall is that you have to leave the house to play the game.
Yeah, especially it's kind of a bummer that it seems like such a different experience depending on like if you're in like a suburb or a city, or like if you're kind of in the country land. I'm sure it wouldn't be nearly as good.
Another negative is if you don't live in an area that doesn't have Pokestops, like you can't
Yeah,
basically
exactly.
can't play it.
I live
unplayable.
close to the center of a town, so it kind of works out that it's not like
Sorry, everybody who lives in Montana.
Yeah. So the next game on my list was Destiny 2. That might be the most fun I've had in kind of a multiplayer setting over the last decade. Specific, just like, it had such good gameplay. Obviously, the people that brought you Halo would be able to do gunplay right, but just going into a raid and like. The raids themselves were very unique. Just the way that they played out, like you really had to strategize, and everyone on your team had to be doing something specifically at the right time. You had to kind of figure it out, especially the first time you were going there, and just like being in a group with people that haven't done it before and figuring out, okay, you have to run through here, and then we have to shoot these symbols in this order when you're doing that. The coordination was kind of like really crazy it's something you would typically only see in an MMO, but to see that in like a shooting game was really cool and unique. The other game, which would be definitely my favorite VR game ever, is Astrobot. Again, that's another game where
Oh, that's a great
I don't
game.
think I've like in this decade smiled as much playing like and just like giggled like a
How
little
could you
kid
not?
playing that game, and just like shout out specifically to the music in that game. Really, I think immerses you, because when you're in a VR headset and the music is on point, like you really kind of feel like you're in the world. And like just how much character and how interesting that little Astrobot is. Like you feel like he's like your little buddy the whole time.
Please add that to my missed opportunities.
Oh yeah.
I still need to play that.
Yeah, I mean, if anyone has VR,
I have.
Well, that came out. That came out like not this year.
No, but whatever.
last year, yeah. It's criminal if you
late
have
to the
VR
game
and you don't.
or something.
If you
That's
haven't
something
played
I
that.
need to. It's
And
something I need to play.
I think it's on sale now for like $20 or
I
less.
own it. That's the worst
Yeah,
part.
so I it's
I
insane.
own
that
it
you
by
haven't played that.
association.
Yeah.
With both of you.
Yeah, you should definitely play it. You can play.
I mean,
mine.
we've played in like a party setting, but I've never
Yeah.
actually because you're always using that TV. So
Yeah,
It's just a platformer, right? It's
Yeah,
a platformer, and
it's a
you
platformer.
control
I have to
the-
wait for you
Yeah.
to do one of your raids in WoW, and then just go and kind of take it over.
Yeah, and it's got like just the right amount of content. After you beat the game, like you can beat all the different worlds. It's kind of set up like a typical Mario game, but then afterwards there's like little challenges that you can unlock that make it that are kind of even harder to kind of extend the length. It has a platinum trophy that you can get that's like not super hard to get, but it's still challenging enough that it feels rewarding to get it. So I feel like they kind of balance everything just right. And I pray to God that there's a new Astrobot coming out in the next year or two. They'd be stupid not to if they're still going to do VR. The next game is Witcher 3, which you already mentioned. That's a game that I fell into, I think, a little bit later than everyone else. I just couldn't get into the gameplay itself wasn't.
I got it day one. We were
wasn't
living
the
together.
strongest part, but the story eventually, if you stick to it,
Yeah,
is worth
I'm
it.
still a coin flip as to whether or not I'm gonna ever play it because it's just such a long haul, and
It is.
it's like probably the most.
If you played it on easy and you focused on the main campaign, you
I
could
don't
probably
want to play it on easy.
I thought you guys were big on like just. Yeah, well, I mean,
I'm playing Last Jedi. On
It's
a
not
step
so
up from
hard on normal, but it still takes a while.
see, I beat it on Death March. I loved it because
God.
it was
Jeez.
that's because
Well, you love
if you
the-
played on easy, you can kill anything with a sword.
Now, would you say easy? Do you mean normal?
No, easy, like easy.
No,
But
I never played a game
like
on easy.
the second highest from so if you're going from the hardest difficulty down, the second one from the most difficult is where you actually use your powers for things because the first two, the easy and like normal, you don't even need your powers. You can literally just hack everything to pieces, and it doesn't let you use your abilities. And that's
Yeah.
the whole point of the game. Is you're supposed to
The Witcher-
manipulate things.
If I had to pick a missed opportunity of the decade, it would be Witcher 3 for me. That was my missed opportunity of the decade, just
Yeah.
because like I know how good the game is.
And I mean, maybe
It's hard for me to sit down and want to play. It's one of those ones where I know if I played for like 4 hours, I'd be like, all right, good, in for the long haul, boom. Like kind of like you said, you let the story ferment for a little bit, and you're like hooked.
Yeah, exactly. It takes a little while to get into, but then you are hooked once you get into it.
it's just it's really well done. I should have put it on my list. I was thinking more of games that have still been an impact, from the time period and are so playable, like to this day, and still sold so much, and have also hit like so many fans. But no, The Witcher's great. And maybe with CJ Projekt Red, once you beat Cyberpunk and you've kind of gotten your fill, maybe you'll be like, you know what? Maybe
I definitely ain't missing out on that one. But
Yeah.
what are your other?
Yeah, so those would probably be my top list. I'm going to just kind of mention a few honorable mentions that I wrote down. Mario Odyssey was a blast playing that.
Oh,
It's another
yeah, that was a
Mario
really good
game.
game,
Just kind
yeah.
of, it felt like a really fresh idea on Mario. God of War from last year was a big fun.
these ones you don't think will.
These are honorable mentions.
These are ones I'm not going to fight for. And then Heroes of the Storm is a game that I played a lot with friends.
Oh,
It's like an
yeah.
online MOBA game with the Blizzard characters, which was a lot of fun. Far Cry 3, which, that was another game that kind of opened me up to like how good these Ubisoft open world games can be, and just having that like that enemy character that has so much character to him that's kind of somewhat famous now, just of how well that was crafted and how they haven't really been able to repeat that. And then I was going to say for the Doom remake, which was a lot of fun from 2016. And another, it's always a pleasant surprise when you see all these recycled games, and it seems like they finally, with Doom, with the Resident Evil 2 remake, they seem to actually be getting to the point where they're getting these old ideas and adding like freshness to them where they're still fun, but they still
make it
feel like the
modern,
old
yep.
thing. Yeah, it seems like something they finally started to hit on. And then the last one, RE2 remake, obviously.
It's funny that we're going to usher in the next decade with a console launch. That's pretty neat.
Yeah.
If I had to pick just a couple more honorable mentions just to throw out there, and Dan, I know you didn't even really get a chance to do that. If you wanted, if there's any you want to, Fallout 4, I played the fuck out of that game for so many hours. Overwatch. I can't ignore how much fun for like
Yeah, it was
probably the
impactful.
longest I've ever if you don't include Halos, one of the longest I've ever played a multiplayer game. That was a lot of fun. I also love Super Mario Odyssey. Unfortunately, the Zelda games, aside from Breath of the Wild, haven't been that great this decade because it was Skyward Sword. Link Between Worlds was fun, but like, you know, I could sit here all day naming like literally every game I enjoyed. Dead Space is another one I want to mention. The first Dead Space I really loved.
Dead Space came out in 2008.
Never mind.
Yeah, that was an old one. That I remember who told me about that too. It's like, I know this whole...
you know why? I played it later.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That's why I thought, because I didn't play it until senior year of college. That was 2010.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
All right.
So let's go through the nominees.
Just in case, is there any honorable mentions you wanted to say, Dan, that games you played this decade that we didn't talk about at all, just to get it out there?
No, I mean, I think we kind of nailed, like, all the other games that I can think of. I wouldn't even, like, fight for it, like, to be in this category. So at this point, they're not even,
It seems
like
like we're
worth it.
I meant just to kind of remember the decade of gaming. Like, the decade brought us, you know, the second half of a generation as well as pretty much the full generation of
Yeah, and I feel like this
current ones.
generation was a lot better than last generation too. Like I feel like that last generation was kind of
like the 360 generation.
I
I think that's just because how it ended, because it ended on a
yeah,
whimper,
I
'cause
guess
they
you're
were-
right.
That
'Cause
was
there were a lot of great 360 games,
Yeah.
but it just
it ended with the whole pushing Connect, the Wii U debacle, and PS3 kind of hitting its stride at the end, but still
Yeah.
not having a lot of games. But if you think about the bulk of that decade, that console generation, I feel like it brought a lot to us. And then, this generation started off, you know, a little slow, but I think brought us some amazing games. Oh, Horizon Zero Dawn. I didn't get to play that yet, but I know I want to mention it as like an amazing
Yeah.
game. All right, so Dan, you were gonna say about like what you looked like you were doing a lot of writing while Matt and I were talking.
No, so I wrote down the actual contenders.
Okay.
And I figured we could go through the list and knock out any of them that we really don't think.
I'm-
Technically,
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
As much as Astrobot looks pretty neat, I don't know if we can call that a game of the
Game of the
decade,
dec- no,
especially when
yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
subcategory. It's a VR, so it's kind of tough. So we can
Still
not
think kind of like all
Yeah,
the other.
it
It was
was
still worth
great.
bringing up.
so
Yeah.
I had listed because while we were talking, I put down some notes too that there was like basically 5 that are hanging here, and one of them I actually had was Astrobot. I have no problem taking that off because I feel like you guys haven't even played the game. It's just
I've played it, some of it.
Yeah, you haven't played.
I don't think it's
you don't-
game of
yeah,
the
you don't,
decade,
You don't have
though,
as much love
you know?
for it. But I guess my thought is like that might actually be, if I was to think about this more, that might actually be my game of the decade. So I don't think it's going to be the Manabar Gaming Podcast game of the decade. But
I didn't even think about that. Like personally, what would be my game of the decade?
Well, that I picked. That's why I went with Grand Theft Auto 5 and Skyrim. Is because for me that was the biggest impact in gaming that I can remember in 10 years.
Yeah, but I guess on a personal level, like Matt.
Well, both.
Matt, his game of the decade was Astrobots on like more of a personal level. So again, I'm surprised Witcher 3 wouldn't be your pick.
No, well, that time period is not my favorite. Like
honestly,
modern is kind of like my favorite.
Game of the decade. That's kind of hard for me, even on a personal level. It would be a split decision, I think, between Grand Theft Auto 5 and Breath of the Wild. Just because Skyrim I didn't play enough personally to really consider it on a personal level, but you know, Breath of the Wild, like I just kept wanting to go. I still want to go play it right now.
That was okay.
And I'm sorry, Last of Us, right there. Last of Us is right there too.
So obviously for games that we won't necessarily count, or they probably wouldn't deserve the title of game of the decade, we can recognize them as impactful. So Astrobot would be one. Pokemon Go would be the other.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
the rest of them are potential candidates. I don't know how I feel about Destiny
Yeah.
2, but
No, I don't think Destiny 2 is game of the decade.
no. So
Yeah, I don't think it
at
would
this
be either.
point it would be a fight between Skyrim, Grand Theft Auto 5, Breath of the Wilds.
Breath of the Wild you can take out. In my
Breath of the
opinion.
Wild. Okay, so we can.
No, again, amazing game. Do I think that it?
I think it has an impact.
I think it has a huge impact. But if I think of like 2010 to 2019, does Breath of the Wild represent that decade? Was it the best game that came out in that decade? Out of the three of us, I probably throw the most love for that game. I absolutely adore the game. It's up there for my favorite Zelda games. I don't know. I don't think so. honestly, and that's coming
All right.
from me, who's the biggest supporter of it. That's just my opinion. I don't think it would make it.
So, all right, I'm just starring the ones
All right,
that.
asterisk.
No, asterisk is for good. It's the ones.
Oh, I don't even know what your system is over there. What's going on?
No, I'm nominating. it, so we have
Dan's
it
really on top of like
list
all this.
down here.
It's like the most productive I've ever seen you.
So, thank you. All right, so right now, we have a list of 5 for game of the decade.
Okay.
So we have Grand Theft Auto 5, we have The Last of Us, we have Skyrim, we have The Witcher 3, and we have Red Dead Redemption.
I'm fine taking Red Dead Redemption out. As awesome as that was, you know,
I don't know how you feel.
I
about
never
that.
went. I never went.
I
back
loved
and-
Red Dead
I'm good with
Redemption. I thought it was fantastic. It was one of those first games. Sorry, spoiler alert, but the game's been out for a while.
I said I was putting that message
Where
out at the beginning of the
the
podcast.
main character is ripped away from your heart and brutally massacred at the very end of the game by a little shit and a little top hat, which just makes it even worse.
So here's the thing: Grand Theft Auto 5. I went like if we're comparing just Grand Theft Auto 5 and Red Dead Redemption. Grand Theft Auto 5, I've gone back and replayed through the entire campaign 3 times. Red Dead Redemption, I only played through once.
Red Dead I've played twice, but
Yeah.
Grand Theft Auto I've beaten twice at
Yeah.
least, and
Not to mention
third time.
Grand Theft Auto sold well for 2 generations.
Yeah, it's always for,
Because it was technically a 360 generation game that was ported in so flawlessly.
and then they added some stuff.
And then, all right, I was going to say this earlier. My one disappointment with Grand Theft Auto 5 is probably the same one you have, is that they never did any like story-based DLC. But think about how impactful the online play has been. It's still so popular. Regardless, you know, none of us at the table play the GTA Online, but you cannot ignore how
I did
impactful
at
the online
first
has
because
been for that.
I was hoping for a little bit more story. I was hoping it was going to be
Yeah. Now, and
you
from
know.
what I've been told, there is a lot of story in the online version, but I just can't stand GTA Online.
Yeah, no, it's very boring. It doesn't
me.
feel like there's an end game. It just feels like time consuming like waste
okay.
things. But
All right, well, let's just agree that stays on the
Yeah.
list for now. I feel like there's some other ones we can whittle it down.
I just want to throw one more honorable mention that none of us want to mention, but we can't ignore how impactful
Fortnite.
it was. Fortnite. You
True.
got to throw it in there. Game of the decade? No.
hell no.
Nope.
It's not even. It's just battle royale.
I just have to mention that blew up probably bigger than. Oh! I'm
Fortnite.
sorry. Nope. This one has to get added to the list. Minecraft.
Was that this?
That
generation?
Yes,
I
it
don't
was.
think-
Yeah,
Are
I
you
think you're
sure?
right.
I'm
No, I
pretty sure
think-
that came out.
Oh,
in
did it come out like right before originally?
Minecraft. Yeah, I feel like that was in college. Minecraft release date 2009, May 17th. So we just miss it.
But had that
but
come out
yes.
this decade,
Yes, it would.
That was
Absolutely.
huge.
So I love Last of Us, but I feel like
No,
we
I
can take that
understand.
off. It
I
doesn't hang
understand.
with those other ones.
I love The Last of Us as well. It was a fantastic
Last
story.
of Us is probably in my, and I've never done this. This is maybe a good discussion we can have someday. Is top 10 games of all time, like our personal lists. That would be on my personal list, but I understand not being game of the decade, so I can take that.
All right,
that
so
brings us
we're
down to 3, right?
We're down to 4. So we have Skyrim, Grand Theft. Oh, we're taking Red Dead off.
yeah,
Red Dead
I
is
would say
off.
so. Yeah.
All right, so Red Dead is off. So it is between 3: Witcher 3, Skyrim, and GTA 5.
it's getting cut throat now.
So
If I'm gonna be completely honest, if I had to pick one game that represented the decade better than anything else, and this is coming from someone, and I've been, I would say, all right, I want to throw this out here, disclaimer here. I've been very unbiased all day with all of these things. I have thought about this from a lot of different angles, and I'm gonna do that again. Basically, I'm just patting myself on the back here.
okay.
again.
So what is your game of choice?
I would say Skyrim, honestly, because
as game of the decade.
game of the decade, because it came out in 2011 and it's still so prominent. Like, oh my god, people still will just go back and play this game all the time. Like, it's probably Bethesda's best game ever made, just from like that impactful standpoint. Like, I love Fallout 3. I love Fallout 4. I probably would love Fallout New Vegas if I ever played it. You know, Bethesda right now isn't doing so well, but you cannot ignore what Skyrim was for this decade.
And it makes me really excited for Elder Scrolls 6.
Assuming they can get their act together.
That's true.
and it comes out sometime.
Yeah. So that's just my opinion. Witcher 3 and what was the other one? Grand Theft Auto 5.
Yeah.
I would, if I had to like order them on like what I would pick as game of the decade, would be Skyrim, GTA 5. So Dan, I think you kind of nailed it with your 2 choices. Like, I kudos to you for whittling it down. And then Witcher 3 would be right there because of like how huge that game was. But like GTA 5 you can't ignore just because of like it came out in one generation then crossed over to the other. 2013, that's been wow. Yeah, that's been like
2011. Yep. 11.
No. GTA 5 came out in
GTA 5.
2013. That was a long
Yeah.
time ago too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
think about how long that's been out, and the GTA Online is
still selling.
still popular. And Red Dead Redemption 2's online didn't catch on nearly as much as the GTA Online did, probably because there's no cars. But
Yeah, they're like, oh, I got a fancy horse with gold teeth. And it's not as cool as
What?
my. I'm kidding. You can't do
oh my
that.
god, that's horrific. I honestly, I would vote for Skyrim. I can't ignore what that game was for this decade and how huge it was. I mean, we have the dragon on the mantle.
I'm just saying I can be swayed, but I just
Swayed for what?
Skyrim. I can be swayed. Like all of these games are absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, all
Grand
the
Theft Auto
games
5.
we
Yeah, Grand Theft.
mentioned today are fantastic games.
Yeah, but I mean, in this category, I feel all three of them are absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
I can go by, and especially with you two just getting an Xbox One, I would highly suggest you guys grabbing Skyrim, the special edition for Xbox, because the sheer amount of mods.
I don't think I could buy that game more than once in a year.
No, but the amount of mods that you can do in that
No,
game.
I know. I bought it for the Switch. I'm gonna try to stick with it for the Switch and try to actually play through the game.
Oh, okay. Because I was gonna say with the mod, like I was an archer in that game, and I hated the how they did the reticle above your head. This one in one of the mods, they made it so it turns like over the shoulder, just like a normal. So they modernized it and made it like a third person, like typical like shooter, and it makes like shooting around like things so much better.
You know what? I just realized it was a sucky decade for both Final Fantasy and Zelda. Like, as a whole. Like, Zelda at the end with Breath of the Wild, obviously, but it started out with Skyward Sword and then a bunch of kind of nothing
What
for
was
Zelda.
the what was so there was Skyward Sword and then what else?
Link Between Worlds and, like, yeah,
Link Between Worlds was
it ended.
awesome.
No, it was a great game, but the game of the decade. That's what I'm saying. Like,
Oh,
then
yeah.
Final Fantasy had 13 related games, and then Final Fantasy 15. Granted, Final Fantasy 14 started off as a dumpster fire and then got better. I just
Then
wanted
they
to throw
fixed
that
it,
out
yeah.
there because I thought that was very interesting. That those are all like some of the best franchises ever known, and like. I guess Zelda kind of saved itself with Breath of the Wild and Link's Awakening remake at the end, kind of making it a little better. Final Fantasy, poor Final Fantasy fans.
Yeah.
Well,
This decade
Final
sucks
Fantasy,
for you.
Final Fantasy 7. That's probably why they realized Final Fantasy 7. We've got to put our friggin' thing into it. So, and if they can make that first game feel like a full first game, that might be that could easily be series of the decade.
Matt,
So,
any
Matt.
thoughts?
Yeah, so I kind of agree that Skyrim would probably be my number one choice for this too. I'm going a little differently, and I think Witcher 3 would be probably my second choice, just because I feel like the impact that story has
You
had.
also didn't like GTA 5 as much. as
Yeah, I
we
was
did.
not a big fan of GTA. I kind of feel like it's like more of the same. Yeah, it's bigger. Yeah, the online's better.
If I play through Witcher 3, my opinion might change. I'm not sure. So that's another thing.
But yeah, like I feel like it's not even like for game of the decade. It's not even my favorite Grand Theft Auto game. Like I prefer Vice City is my favorite Grand Theft Auto game of all time. I feel like the
I
story.
really hope the next Grand Theft Auto is in the 80s.
Yeah, the
I heard they're
story,
going to
the
do like some time
characters,
traveling.
The world was more interesting to me. I do recognize that it's a really fun game, and I think it's partly just me that doesn't like it as much as everyone else do. I just don't like the whole three protagonists that are kind of you're switching between, so you're not. I feel like you're getting 1/3 of the story for three separate people as opposed to like a full giant story where you're really connecting to one person. But I feel like Witcher 3 really kind of set that standard for storytelling and just like what a side quest can be. I
Yeah.
feel like a lot of side quests
Yeah.
till then were like, you need to kill these 10 boars for me.
Again, like I get pretty bored with those, and that's the reason I haven't played much of Skyrim until lately, is because
Yeah.
I get really bored with those kind of Sword and Shield era games. But like that just shows how good The Witcher must be if I still want to play it. Like it's that push and pull for me. But like, yeah, I got to go with Skyrim. I agree. Dan?
Yep. I mean, the only reason I wouldn't pick the I almost said the switcher. The Witcher, is because I feel like Skyrim kind of, or The Witcher used a lot of like the Skyrim.
I mean, both Matt and I also picked Skyrim over
Yeah.
Witcher.
No. But I'm just thinking like I feel like Skyrim is like that pinnacle, and I feel like games after that are kind of like
Yeah.
Skyrim's like the OG of like those
Yeah, everything
the
else is
new
trying to copy
generation,
Skyrim.
and it's not that it copied it, but this just made it so good,
Yeah.
kind of like how Resident Evil 4 made that over the shoulder just. So good that everyone was like, "Oh, I can make that a little bit better."
Yeah,
Like that was the change.
Halo with the twin stick shooters.
Yeah, so
Or and you could even go further and say that Skyrim was what it was because of Oblivion too, because Oblivion was actually
yeah, but this was
big.
one of the first ones that also made it so that third person and first person, it could play really well either way.
Yeah.
So whatever, like I heard people that were like, I played the entire thing in first person. Well, I played the whole entire thing in third person. And it just did a great job of just everything. Like the combat was fun, and
this went way better than Game of the Year. Like we were way more easy. It was way more easier to come to a conclusion.
so
To think that like you could like every object was kind of like movable, and you could kind of there was so many side, like you could actually read, every book had like writing in it and
and
stories
pages and stuff, and
just
oh
to
my
think-
god.
and like this is 2011. That was all stuff that wasn't being done before, and like people are all still trying to catch up to this game, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, so it easily would be my game of the decade.
Then that's it.
So-
Skyrim wins it.
Woo!
Deserved.
Now we
Well deserved.
We can look forward to Skyrim on all of the next platforms coming out next year. I'm sure.
God.
Skyrim now on your
HD
fridge.
Master
I will say the one
final edition.
The one thing that's unfortunate about the Switch version is it's not really the remastered version.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like on
But
top
I
of,
can't buy that game again. I already bought it twice.
I know what I'm getting both of you for Christmas.
Get a
So
Christmas present?
yeah, sure.
I didn't get you anything.
Well, I feel like that would be fitting to get you guys the game. of
Last
the
year I got
decade.
Matt some sponges because I threw out his favorite sponge.
That was great. I love those sponges. They got little
No,
smiley
I'll go to
faces on them.
GameStop and get you guys Skyrim.
I do want to go to GameStop today if you want to come.
There you go.
Okay. So anyways, yeah, that was our game.